if they're able to swing a deal and bring in another player, what position would you like to see them at?
I've been waiting for you to ask me that actually. I think it's very clear that not only the fan base is very interested in seeing a top six winger come in because we talked a little bit about Ryan O'Reilly, or you touched on it with the Ryan O'Reilly situation down the middle between Tavares and Marner. Really like the line. Kind of think that any of those guys, when it comes down to Bunting, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and O'Reilly, you can kind of filter in and move guys up, move guys down as you wish. Um, I would like to see a guy like Ryan O'Reilly um, in the third line center role personally, just because I think it kind of I've always been a fan of kind of spreading out the wealth a little bit in your lineup, and I think that helps them with obviously the depth of their team and kind of gives a little bit more offensive prowess to the bottom six, at least on the third line. I don't know if you noticed last night, but he threw a line together. Keith did anyways with Kerfoot, Lafferty, and Ryan O'Reilly, and they had it like I would say like five or six like solid shifts that they were not so obviously not generating scoring, not scoring any goals or getting on the score sheet, but um, definitely putting together some plays and looked like they were a half decent unit that could potentially work. I'm interested to see if he goes with that lineup tonight, and potentially we see John Tavares back in the center position for the first time in a little bit here since the acquisition of Ryan O'Reilly, obviously. So I think Tavares's game and Ryan O'Reilly's game are very, very similar. They have similar skating styles. It's very similar numbers as well, 91 and 90. So almost looking out there on the broadcast, kind of it's like, oh, is that Tavares? Is there a C on the jersey? It's like, or is that O'Reilly? So they are very very similar players, and they play a similar game. So I think that would be a little bit um, of a nicer situation, obviously, if Keith were to kind of balance that out and split those two guys up. And Ryan O'Reilly's no slouch offensively, obviously, so he can create plays. He could drive plays on his own as well. And I think with speed on his wings, he'll be able to kind of come in as the late guy and use that lethal shot of his. So I do think that a player that they would have to bring in would be a forward position if possible. Again, I moved to another guy that's an expiring UFA, Alexander Kerfoot. He does bring a lot of speed, obviously, in their bottom six. I don't really think it's been tried many times with Kerfoot in the top six, and it's always a little bit more of a short term fix, and doesn't really seem to stick after a short period of time, anyways, maybe a handful of games, 5-6 game periods at a time. So. I think if they were to bring in someone, I think they'd have to obviously move some money out. So I would point to potentially an Alexander Kerfoot and a Justin Holl being included in a deal to potentially acquire a guy that can definitely play in your top six left winger position. And then by doing so, you are then opening up like a potential third or ideally third line, potentially fourth line left wing spot for an NCAA player called Matthew Knies. So I think he's going to sign an NHL contract in the coming weeks. We'll see if he can win a championship in college with Minnesota. And then that was his goal this year. I actually had the pleasure to actually interview him at Leafs development camp, and that was his mindset. He wanted to be a better skater, be involved physically, and if you go through some of his highlights this year, you can clearly see that's been his main focus, and he's improved a great deal. So, to answer your question, I think if they do acquire somebody come 3 o'clock tomorrow, I do think it will be a forward.
I would like to see them add up front as well, and it would be interesting to see them continue jumbling the second and third lines. Like Ryan O'Reilly, I like him in the middle of John Tavares and Mitch Marner. However, the downside to that is you're taking away one of John Tavares' greatest strengths, and that's in the face-off circle. So if you went and got someone that could play on the left wing, I mean, that's a position that's been there's been a pretty big void there for the entire season this year. And no, Calle Yarncrow, that's not someone that's going to fill the void of a Stanley Cup championship team on the second line left wing position. I think you need to go out and acquire a legitimate top six left winger. And heck, if you really want to keep John Tavares with Ryan O'Reilly and Mitch Marner, then you could even slot this player down on line three. But I just think having a player that can slot into that second line left wing position would be really impactful, and potentially a guy that's out there, a former Toronto Maple Leaf, James Van Riemsdyk. That'd be interesting to see another reunion of also a few former Flyers, Luke Schenn and James Van Riemsdyk, the guys that were traded for each other. That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, that would be something. It's funny you pointed that out because he's been on kind of more so now, I would say, kind of in the top 10 in regards to like trade bait targets to be able to acquire. Obviously with the trade of Patrick Kane and Ryan O'Reilly, and Tyler Bertuzzi this morning. So the forward group, the top six forward group anyway, with guys who can fill in the top six role, is definitely kind of dwindling down now. But yeah, a guy like James Van Riemsdyk, I think he has a cap hit of like just around 7 million. So there would definitely have to be some bodies going out there, potentially some salary retained as well. So if the deal works out, I mean, that very interesting to see two guys that were traded for each other now playing on the reunited with a franchise that they both have a special place in their hearts. I think. I mean, James Van Riemsdyk was named one of the top 100 Maple Leafs players in franchise history back in 2016. So, and Luke Schenn obviously drafted by them. So yeah, I think that would be an interesting matchup. I think the type more so, I'm not going to throw out any names, but I would say the type of player that they'd potentially be looking to acquire would be like a pure goal scorer. I think would be the way to go. Just because there are a lot of playmakers on this team with a guy like Mitch Marner who can obviously score goals. I'm not saying he can't score goals. Obviously, William Nylander can definitely score goals. I just find that a little bit with the offensive play slightly, well, substantially lacking from Austin Matthews this season. Not saying he's having a bad year. He's having a great year defensively, really setting the standard for this Leafs team and being a true leader. Wears a letter for a reason. He's a guy that goes to battle every night and does all the little things that maybe a lot of people don't notice when he's obviously not on your top like Sports Center top 10 or highlight reel or anything like that, right? So I think that would potentially help it and potentially boost a guy. Like I'm not married to the idea that Michael Bunting has to play on Matthews' wing for the entire season. Like a lot of people are saying this left wing second line center spot is open. At the end of the day, guys who can play in the top six should be able to filter through either line one or line two. So yeah, I don't have a list in front of me in terms of the guys available that would kind of fit that criteria. I'd have to do some digging on that, but I don't know, just off the top of my head, maybe like a Max Domi or like an Andreas Antanasiou or definitely a James Van Riemsdyk who has some ability to score in tight and some good playmaking abilities as well, and a pretty solid two-way guy as well. So I think bringing in some offensive prowess would be their main goal, and if they were to add a forward type, right?
Definitely agree with that. There's some interesting targets out there, and at this trade deadline, this past week or two, it's been crazy leading up to it. I haven't seen this much movement out of a trade deadline in a long time.